Welcome to the Real Estate Radio Show, your ultimate guide to everything real estate. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a seasoned investor, or thinking about selling, we have the insights you need. Your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and a top-producing broker, will break it down weekly. We'll dive deep into market trends and speak with industry pros about everything from pricing and negotiation strategies and staging tips to financing options and home inspections. This fast-paced, ever-evolving market doesn't have to be overwhelming. We are here to guide you through it. Today's show is brought to you by TrustedAgentUSA.com. Get your market value, explore your selling options, and choose your closing date. Go to TrustedAgentUSA.com and do real estate your way. You've got options. Licensed in Illinois. Number 475-145-795. Now, let's dive in. Here's Larry.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We are happy to have you here joining us this December 19th, the final show for the year for the Real Estate Radio Show. And we got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we are coming to you live from the virtual studios of WIIFM, What's in It for Me. And we're going to be joined here soon by Dylan Kramer, a little bit later by John Hoffman. We are going to talk about all the things that happened in the last year. And it's been a pretty eventful year in the real estate business. Probably one of the most consequential years, certainly since I've been in the business, and that's 24 years. And so we'll talk about all that. And without any further ado, let's bring Dylan on. And let's talk a little bit about rates, what's going on out there. And Dylan, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, Larry? Good to see you, man. And happy holidays to you. Same
to you.
I'm unfortunately going to tell you that Fed meeting yesterday.
What's that?
Fed meeting yesterday.
Yeah, you're coming in and out a little bit.
What about, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're just stalling a little bit.
Well, I was asking you a question, which is why I paused. So anyway, what we had yesterday was the Fed meeting. And, they get together every 6 weeks and talk about rates and set market Fed over time. And remember that the Fed has two mandates, right? We have the employment mandate and keeping the unemployment rate low and making sure people have jobs and places to work, and then managing inflation. And the Fed has been cutting rates really for the last 3 or 4 months, right? And we've been in this situation where, in anticipation of the fact that the Fed would be cutting rates, mortgage rates got healthy late in the summer in the 6.5 area. But what's happened over the last window time Fed started cutting rates, and it really culminated yesterday, is that the Fed announced they're going to cut rates another quarter point. And remember, they hold the low rate, or the shortest rate in the market, the overnight lending rate for banks. Mortgage rates are set by the mortgage-backed securities market. It's the longest rate, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage.
Right.
Sometimes it's like a teeter-totter. And this is exactly what's happened here. Rates, mortgage rates fell apart yesterday afternoon. We started at it was 7.35 by the time we got to 2 o'clock after the 1 o'clock Fed meeting. And it's because Powell came out at his press conference, and the Fed has basically announced we're really kind of okay on this job market thing, and we're way more worried about inflation, the administration, economic uncertainty going forward lends it to inflation. So I would say that my opinion 2025 on markets, based on what we saw just yesterday in fresh news, is that we are likely to see rates continue to be about 7% on average, maybe higher if the inflation shakes out, get a couple of breaks on that, and maybe we get some short windows at 6.5, but 2025 is not going to be the year. The only 5 in 2025 is going to be in the year, not mortgage rates.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you on that. We talked a little bit about it last week. I also mentioned that I think I don't see rates going below 7% next year, 2025. And I see us, maybe 6.8 to 7.5 fluctuating back and forth, depending on what's going on in the economy, inflation, job market, and all that. But yeah, I think the Fed meeting was very consequential in that, number one, they raised it by a quarter point. But at the same time, they also indicated that they're going to be very cautious moving forward. And there was actually some dissent on that quarter point raise. So there were some people there that didn't even want to raise it 0.25%. And
yeah, I think they're right. Frankly, I think that the Fed was kind of boxed. Look, you've heard me use the phrase that the Fed is boxed in many times over the course of the last couple of years. And I really feel that that's where they're at. They have inflation teetering on one side, jobs kind of back and forth on the other. And there's all this debt, all the national debt, all the debt. It's a really hard spot to be in for the Fed. It really is.
Yeah, they have a lot they're juggling, no doubt. And the thing that I find kind of interesting though is that we're back to worrying about inflation. And of course, we want to get that yearly annual inflation rate down to right at 2%, which is the Fed's target, right? We were close. We were at about 2.1 or 2.2. Then we shot to 2.3. Well, I think we're at about 2.6 now. And there's a lot of talk about tariffs. A lot of talk about tariffs, a lot of talk that, gets people thinking and gets them to react and maybe try and react before the tariff might come. And I think, words matter. When people talk, markets move.
Yeah, look, I do think it's going to be interesting after the inauguration. I think that the incoming administration is no fan of Mr. Powell at the Fed, and I think that they're going to have a little fight about things. But look, at the end of the day, I also think that the incoming president is a simple person in terms of viewing the world in black and white. And so I do get the impression that he will lean on the Fed and be like, you need to cut rates. That'll be good for the economy. And they can cut rates. But as you've heard me say, the bond market is in charge of mortgage rates. So if the Fed gets strong armed by either firing Mr. Powell or he throws up his arms and goes, well, he's the president and we'll do what he wants, right? Which is a little political, he is. But I mean, with the incoming administration, all kind of standard procedures go out experience last. And so we're going to find ourselves in a situation where, the Fed could have their hand forced by the administration into cutting rates, and the bond market raise mortgage rates and slow the economy. And the unintended consequence, the exact opposite of what the administration would be trying to orchestrate. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot going on geopolitically too. So we'll see how that, is going to play into the mix as we move forward and see how things shake out in the Mideast, how things shake out in Europe. Canada's losing their minds now. So, there's a lot going on. And I think
if
all
you have
of it,
a sub 4% mortgage, you should just hold on to it like grim death.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people are doing. But we're also seeing a lot of people coming off the sidelines a little bit, right?
Tell me about that. I have activity that I haven't had in a while. Like, it's pretty busy right now, oddly. But I can tell you about that. But I want to hear your story on that.
Yeah. So, inventory is slowly creeping up, right? And we're going to be joined by John Hoffman, I believe, at noon. So we'll start talking a little bit about what we see coming once he comes on and, what's happened. Sure. I mean, I think arguably we can say that this has been one of the most consequential years in real estate, 2024, certainly since me and you have been in business. I've been doing this 24 years. You've been doing it probably as long or longer. You're much younger than me, but you've probably been in it about the same.
This is the only real job I've ever had, pal.
Mine too. And this year has been, earth shattering for the real estate business. And I think it's still playing out and is going to continue to play out. And we'll get into that a little more when John comes on, so we could all be part of that conversation. But in terms of business and, how is it going right now, just in terms of activity? Well, an associate of mine who I just did title for, listed a property, had it on the PLN for about 7 days, got a lot of activity, a lot of people inquiring about the property, went on the MLS. I did an open house for her at this property in Naperville. Nice property, needs a little bit of updating, but solid as a rock, right? Mechanicals, everything else good to go. Move in, nothing to worry about. She got 3 offers on it immediately, and sold for, I can't say how much it sold for because it hasn't closed yet, but it sold for more than list price. Let's just put it that way. So the market is still moving along, and there are still buyers out there that are, they want to get in that home buying, home ownership market. They're not shying away from that. And I think, with inventory coming up a little bit, it's a good thing. Not nearly enough, but business is still churning and moving along here.
Larry, I'm going to tell you a story. Even last year at this time, but this is what's happened this year, and I think it's relevant to share with folks. I have a client currently refinancing his house. Literally bought it in December last year, or November 28th or something last year. Bought a house using a no money down program that had a first and a second and a grant and a this and that. Long story short, bought the house for $490,000, financed it all, and is now in a situation where we're refinancing the property. And remember, rates were really, really high at this time last year, like 8.25, right? The fact that we're at 7.25 is markedly better than where we ended last year, even if it's not as good. So we're refinancing his first and that second, and it was at 8.25 and 10.25. And why are those relevant? Because he can drop the current loan on an FHA loan all the way down to 6.75. It's $650 a month, and he's able to turn around and refinance it at a lower PMI rate because he's had enough appreciation that he now has 5% equity in the house. Now, is it a dramatic amount of money? No, 5% on roughly $500,000, about $25,000 in equity. But it's $5,000 in a year, and he's in a situation where he can cut his housing cost by $600 a month because of the improvement in the market. And so the thing is that when we talk to people, and I'm sure you've had these conversations over the last year or two as well, where people have said, I'm going to wait this market out, or I want to make sure that things have settled before I jump into the real estate market, or other comments that honestly are born of ignorance in the truest sense of the word, right? I don't know. So I'm using words that mean nothing, this word salad, to do nothing. The fact of the matter is, we talked about the idea that there's a big population of two big populations. Population one, we talked about a minute ago, and that is not enough houses are coming out on the market. The population of people who would maybe move if they could get a rate in the 5s, even to give up the rate in the 4s or the 3s, they'd make that trade. But they ain't moving for rates in the 7s. So they're not, their houses aren't coming to market. The second set of constituents are the people between 28 and 35, 38, who we all made fun of 10 years ago for living on their parents' couch. But when you get married and you start having kids and you need school districts and you need all this other stuff in life, you're going to buy a house, and it doesn't really matter what the cost is. And so there's no depreciation. There's no 2008 style, hey, housing prices are going to fall 5%. You're going to buy, it's going to be worth 300 grand in a year. That's not happening. Because it's not happening, it makes a lot of sense to get in, get appreciation moving for you, get principal pay down working for you, and get the stop paying your landlord thing working for you. I mean, it's a story as old as time. We've been singing from this sheet of music for 25 plus years, you and I both, and it's just and it's because it's true.
It's true. I actually have a calculator that will show a prospective home buyer how much they're going to pay for their house now at the current interest rate, and how much their monthly payment, because that's what people buy, right? They buy monthly payments. Am I right? Yeah.
Sure.
So yes, just absolutely. like when people buy cars, they buy monthly payments. And so, I have a calculator that'll show people exactly how much they're going to pay for the house at this price, at this interest rate right now, as opposed to waiting for that interest rate to drop half a point or a point. Right. And when prices go up here, and what are you going to be paying for that house then at that interest rate at the inflated price? Because guess what? Prices aren't coming down. They're not coming down. Right. And we'll talk about that too in the second half of the show when we get into affordability and things like that. Because listen, prices, if you're waiting for prices to come down, that is a fool's errand. Prices are not coming down for houses, for condos, for anything. Rents are starting to stabilize a little bit because there's a lot more rental inventory on the market, and there's a lot more rental inventory coming on the market.
Yeah, but they're not coming down.
Prices, what's that?
They're not coming down. They may be flattening, but they're not coming down.
Yeah, they're pretty much, and that's exactly right. And by the way, everything we talk about here is local, because what's happening here may not be happening in your neck of the woods. Certainly, right. Like, I put out this little video, and it's just a little fun video I put out where, hey, I'm driving through $1 million cul-de-sac. Where am I? So I would drive through it, and I just kind of did a little panoramic view of all the houses, and they're all $1 million plus houses, right? In this cul-de-sac. So I posted that, and one of my friends from California said, she laughed. She's like, yeah, none of those houses are $1 million here. Not even close.
Right. They're
said, yeah, actually,
2.5.
More. These houses, which were in a cul-de-sac in Naperville, these houses were in California. A 6,000 square foot house like this is going to run you between $4 and $5 million all day long. If you get lucky, depending on where it is, maybe $3.5 to $4 million. But in many places in California, these houses that I showed on this video that here in Naperville cost somewhere around $1 million are going to be probably between $3.5 and $5 million, depending on where it is in LA County.
Dude, that's crazy.
Absolutely nuts. But and this kind of leads me to my next thing I wanted to touch on with you, and that is shared equity programs. So it's a homeowner buying a home with an investor, and it's literally a shared equity program. They're both going to buy the home together. I don't know. I mean, it sounds, everything new sounds sketchy, right? Anything new, you kind of question.
I don't like it. Look, at the end of the day, one of the things that's really important for folks is the ability to turn around and leverage real estate, right? The great asset. And look, we've had some folks, and now we just action last month where folks are downsizing, and they took, 300 grand in equity from their current house, and they took two 215 and put it down on the new place, and they took another 25 to 30 to do some repairs to the new place, and then they took another 50 grand and they paid off some credit cards and some student loans for their kids. And that was possible because 100% of the equity after living in the house for 15 years belonged to them. And if you turn around and share that up, who's going to make money? Hedge funds. And
it's weird.
This is the sort of thing that the terms of those, I can't imagine. I mean, I've seen some of the kind of sketch out details of that. I don't like the terms of those agreements now, and I can't imagine over the next couple of years they're not going to make them even more favorable to those investors. Let's just call them investors, whether they're hedge funds, private equity, whatever you want to call it. So I don't like it. I don't like it a bit.
Yeah,
Wouldn't do it.
I'm not a huge fan of it at first glance either. I'm looking at this here, and it's really just a way to kind of lessen that whole affordability crisis that we're in right now and give people an opportunity to at least get into the home ownership market. But I don't want to get in bed with an investor, a shared investment on the house that I'm buying. It's not something that would attract me.
If you're an investor, if you're in any real estate deal with multiple investors, you want to be the deep-pocketed investor. The deep-pocketed investor is the one who's going to set the deal. And if you do that, you're not the deep-pocketed investor. And I would just argue, Larry, that yes, affordability is an issue. You need to move one subdivision over. You need one less bedroom. You need one less garage space for whatever your budget is. And you may get the neighborhood that you aspire to, or the property that you're thinking you need from a maximum space standpoint. But it's just bullshit. And I'll just be frank about it. At the end of the day, there's no, it's a version. I don't know if you've seen this, but there are companies out there backed by private equity that are going out, especially after baseball players, but lots of young athletes. And they're like, hey, we'll give you $1 million today for 12% of your earnings on a go forward basis. And they're gambling that you're going to be a superstar, right? That it's going to work out. And they'll tell you to not turn anything. They can't get those. But if you're Photo, who just for $765 million, or you're Junior, who signed for like $350 years ago, of that $350, he's got to give $40 million to this hedge fund plus interest because they gave him money up front. And it's just not like they're in you for a big bite. And I would tell you that 30 years of experience makes me jaded, but it doesn't make me wrong. I just don't see a way that works for the consumer.
I'm not a huge fan of that either at first glance. But like we were talking about not only earlier today, but in the past, affordability is a problem right now. It really is. It's keeping younger home buyers out of the market. I was just talking to one at an open house. We have a property on the market for like 3.8 million in Naperville. Nice property, but we were talking, and obviously he's not in the market for that kind of property. However, he was talking about how his friends, and he's in his late 20s, so his friends are in late 20s, early 30s, and they can't afford to buy a house right now. They just can't afford to purchase right now.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of that, especially given some of the student loan debt that folks are carrying. Like, it's a real issue. There's no question about it. And there's no good answers. There really isn't.
Well,
I
you're right. There's no good answer for affordability. There really isn't. And there is, in that if we build a ton more houses and get a lot more inventory out there, you'll see prices come down. I don't see that happening.
You say that, Larry, but it's tough, right? Like, look, at the end of the day, most places when you're building new construction, it's not affordable for a developer, whether it's townhouse type of physical structure or single family homes. Let's leave condos out of it. it's really impossible for them to build those affordably now because of the mandates of municipalities. Hey, you're going to pay a $75,000 per unit impact fee. You're going to rerun the sewers from the taps that connect with the city to the property, especially if you're doing a tear down, right? You're gonna do all this stuff, and you're in for $100,000 or $120,000 in mandated work. Well, you can't build a $350,000 house profitably because it's going to cost you $150,000, $180,000 to build it, right? So at the end of the day, you got no chance, which is why so many of these towns, especially tear down towns, end up with so many cookie cutter 500 square foot houses with 4 bedrooms and a 3-car garage, because it's not profitable till they put that type of house up. It needs more $700,000 to $1 million houses in the suburbs. We need houses like the ones getting torn down, right? 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2-car attached garage, maybe a small foyer, but like not a gigantic gourmet kitchen in every house. But the problem is that the builder can't profitably build those given the government mandates in lots of these municipalities. And then the government's going to turn around to the builders and go, you're not helping us. But it's really starting with the government decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have to see, and I think we will with this administration, some regulations loosened up a little bit for home builders and things like that. And I think that might spur new construction on a little bit. What's that?
I said, I think you're right about that. I think that's a legitimate that's out there. Look, one of the things, again, politics aside, the incoming president is real estate guy. And so is he going to turn around and get behind real estate in a big way? Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Let's see what happens. I mean, that could be a very good thing for this economy. Like we talked about the last time you were on the show a couple of weeks ago, we could literally 3x our new home construction right now, and it would take us 5 years to catch up to where we should be. So we would need like a ton of building to be where we want to be, but any little bit helps. For sure. Any little bit helps. One other thing on affordability I want to talk about, because you'll be able to certainly chime in on this too, and that is the length of that mortgage contract that you have with your lender. So typically we've always known that to be what? 30-year for some people, 15-year, but pretty much by and large, we're always when we're talking about a mortgage, we're talking about a 30-year fixed rate mortgage or a 30-year adjustable rate mortgage, but it's typically 30 years. What we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of, especially in areas like California and other areas where everything, if you're under $2 million in California, you're flying off the market. You're flying off the market in California if you're under $2 million. For sure. So a lot of these lenders now are going to 50-year plus mortgages or 40-year mortgages. And that's going to raise your interest. That's going to, you're going to pay more for that home. But, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's another, I don't think it helps all that much. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, look, if you go to a 50-year mortgage in some markets, you're never going to pay it down, but you might as well just give people an interest-only loan at that point. The 40-year loan, I've seen the math. It just doesn't impact affordability enough to be worth it, which is why Fannie Mae doesn't do them, right? Fannie Mae is the gold standard for the business. And I would argue that those are private investor loans. I mean, the wealthy private investors, but they're private investor loans. And so if you're going to turn around and come to market with that, you're going to charge a little more. And by the time all is said and done, you pick up a little more interest expense. Yeah, maybe you can amortize over another 10 years, but it's not a difference maker. As a matter of fact, hold on. I'm going to pull my calculator out. Let's talk about it.
Hang on 1 second. Hold that thought for a minute. We're going to take a 30-second break, and we're going to bring John Hoffman and Patrick Loftus on to join the conversation. We'll be right back, folks.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio, sponsored in part by TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, saving you thousands. Now back to Larry, the real estate therapist.
All right, everybody, we are back and we're being joined by our buddy Patrick Loftus, who just returned from Machu Picchu over there in Peru,
Nice.
and John Hoffman, the managing broker over at Y Rent Real
What's
Estate.
up, gents?
How are you, John? He's
What's up,
joining
fellas?
Hey, man.
Dylan.
What's up,
And
Dylan?
Good
Patrick?
afternoon.
How you guys doing, man?
All good, all good.
Every
Merry
day's a holiday.
holiday to everybody.
Especially lately.
It's fine.
Right. So you guys, we left off. Dylan was just talking about, because, you know, home affordability is still a problem, a huge problem. I don't see that going down in 2025. I don't see that becoming less of a problem in 2025 for a lot of reasons. So we were just kind of talking about that 40-year mortgage and some of these areas like California that are going to 40-year plus mortgages. And Dylan, what were you saying about that?
You know, what I did, Larry, was while we were kind of getting the second segment ready, I went to my handy dandy HP 12C, which dates me as much as anything else in the business.
Yeah.
And did the math on a $500,000 loan at the same interest rate, which you probably would not get, right? They'd want more, they'd want a higher interest rate to compensate them for the extra risk of the extra 10 years. But just using the same rate, a $500,000 loan falls from a principal and interest payment of $33.25 to $31.07. Like, it's just not enough money to take on another 10 years of loan. It just, the math doesn't math in my world.
Not very.
I'll tell you, we got clients, we have listings that, we have a listing that's a short sale, and he hasn't paid in 2 years, I believe. And he doesn't want the property. He's basically like, look, I'm getting divorced. I don't want the property. They're begging him to take a loan mod. They want to put the 30 some thousand he owes on the back and give him a 40-year loan. It's like, that's gonna help this guy out. I mean, you're a permanent renter at that point. You'll never pay this house off, and God forbid anything dips. You know, then he's really stuck. He's really upside down. You know,
it keeps him in the house, and it keeps him in the house, and it keeps that house off the balance sheet for the lender.
Right. They're not foreclosing on anybody. There's nothing. Anybody who can't pay, they're in forbearance, and that's it. And whether they want to be or not, they're just mailing you a letter going, "Hey, you're in forbearance," even if you don't contact them. Yeah, that's how screwy this shit is right now. Oh, pardon my language.
Well, Patrick, you're an attorney. What are you seeing are you seeing any of these distressed situations with your clients and stuff? And
I haven't seen anything bubble up with my clients. It's more or less business as usual in terms of the purchases and sales. I sure hope I don't see a lot of short sales coming down the pipe. I just don't see a lot of people, at least in my neck of the woods, in distress as far as being able to make their housing payment. And the people who want to buy, they're out there buying. I mean, the situation, it hasn't really changed that much over the past 12 to 18 months as far as not a ton of inventory. I mean, I've heard some scuttlebutt about a lot of people being ready to jump in to be a home seller in the spring market next year, and I'm cautiously optimistic, but we'll see.
I am too.
At the moment, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty about what kind of policies are going to be introduced. Which of the rumored things that we're all hearing is going to happen, and which of them is smoke blowing. I mean, if they tariff Canada into oblivion, good luck if you're a home builder. Where you're gonna a lot of your building materials just got just turned turned into completely unaffordable. What are you going to do then?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I said that, actually right after the election. I think a lot of people are going to sit tight, see what's coming down the pike in terms of policy, how that's going to affect, home buying and buyers and sellers. And I think that's what's happening right now. But I will say this, if you put a house on the market, if it's in good condition, you priced it right, even if it's not in good condition, if you priced it right, that house is going to come off that market pretty quick.
It's gone.
I've seen it with every house that's checked off those boxes, that one box. Price it right. Just price it right, and you're going to sell your house. Stop fantasizing about what your neighbor sold the house for or what you'd like to get out of it.
What I'm seeing right now is I do the BPOs in the REO space. I do get a lot of BPO requests. I'm getting 30 of those a day. And that's usually when you're 3 months behind, the bank orders a drive-by BPO. And I'm getting 30 a day easy all over Chicagoland.
Wow.
I was getting 30 a month 6 months ago. That's how crazy that's getting. And what's even more interesting is I'm getting BPO requests for properties I did a BPO on a year ago. And then I look up the property and it was a short sale a year ago. So these guys are just hanging out in these houses, There's so much damage you don't see. And I think 13% of the FHA loans are delinquent, but they don't want them. They don't want them back. They're nothing. They're just they're going to kick this can as long as they can.
Yeah, I think servicers had enough 2008 through 2016, 17. They're like, we don't want any part of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, somebody's going to be making them whole, though.
Terrible, especially here in Illinois. The foreclosure process, especially here in Illinois, is terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrible if you're a lender. Now, I'm finding it difficult to develop some tiers for them. Just they're not coming. But the reality is it is very much tilted in favor of the borrower there. And I just took some notes here. According to John, don't need to pay my mortgage anymore. Thank you. Very good. That'll save me a lot of money.
Noted.
Yeah, right. Hey, you heard it here first or less.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy out there right now.
Can I get a certificate for that? Like a certificate of no payment. You're okay. Yeah. It's crazy what's going on, but like with everything else in real estate, Patrick, it's all local, right? So
for sure,
it's the same thing with foreclosures, because if you're in a non-judicial state like Texas, you're out on your ass in 30 days.
Yeah.
If you're in a judicial state like Illinois, 4 years later, you could very possibly still be in your house, having not paid a dime in mortgage. And, it's very different state to state. And Illinois is crazy town, man, when it comes to foreclosures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest. And, I've handled some foreclosure defense, not a lot. I didn't get, super involved in that, but it's not hard. It's not hard to delay these things. And, you make the lender jump over every hurdle, through every hoop. I send out a 50 paragraph document request. Good luck. I will sit there and I will nitpick you into oblivion. Yeah, it'll be at least 6 months, if not longer, before I get a meaningful response to that document request. Because all they want to do is lend money and then collect it, right? And some of them don't even want to do either or. They do one or the other of those. Keeping paperwork is an expense. It's not a profit center. So they don't invest a lot of time, effort, energy, etc. into it. And so as a foreclosure defense role, I take full advantage of that.
Yeah. And so do the homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, they should. John's been doing this forever in REOs. I did it for a long, long time. And whenever I would knock on a door and have to tell somebody, by the time I'm knocking on the door, they've had 15,000 letters come to their home. They've already stopped opening the mail. So I'm knocking on the door. And what I would take their side, even though I was being given these opportunities by Fannie and Freddie and whoever else. I would tell them, hey, just sit tight, and wait until I put this notice on your door, which is a cash for keys notice, because everything up until then is BS. It doesn't matter. You can stay there. No one's coming to kick you out of your house.
No.
And I think it's still the same way, right, John?
Yeah, well, they don't. I think I told you about that one, Larry. I had an Elgin. He hadn't paid since 2018. They foreclosed 2018, which means he hadn't paid in probably 2016. I evicted him in March this year. And he gamed the system the whole way. I mean, it was like, yeah, he shows up to court. It's like, oh, my dog ate it. Boom, another 6 months, and that went on. And when we finally kicked him out, the police had to bang the door down, and he was in it. So we bashed the door in, and he's like, sorry, I got nowhere to go. And that's what's happening too, is that these people, what are they going to do? Go rent for $2,800? They can't even pay their mortgage. So that's another reason why they're just staying at them. They're not going anywhere because they have nowhere to go.
Well, yeah, where it comes home to roost is, it's all fine and dandy when you're in that delay process, and it can last for years, but your situation in terms of finding replacement housing is extremely difficult.
Yep.
And if you don't have a place for a soft landing, once that finally ends, that whole process, like you're describing, John, it's the reality is a harsh one.
Yeah, he had 2 dogs too. So what's he going to do there?
Isn't it funny though that people that get into those situations, it's that whole flight or fright, all that kind of stuff. But people stop. They don't save. Like at the same time, they're not paying their mortgage. My experience has been, and I don't know if it's the same with you, John, or not. It's not like people are saving that $2,000 that they're not paying their lender, so that when all this shit hits the fan, they're going to have a little bit of cushion there. No, they're literally at the end of the day. They get comfortable.
Yeah, they literally, we in Illinois too, and I think you remember the Cash for Keys program, Larry, that Fannie used to send you a notice, hey, go offer this guy cash for keys. I must have done it over 2 years. I did it like 7 times. I'm finally like, what are we doing here? He doesn't want it. He has nowhere. What's $6,000 going to do for this guy? Except get him a first, last, and security, and then he's done. It is. It's like there's no, they have nowhere to go. They have no options whatsoever. So that's why you're seeing this thing become a mess like that.
Dylan, are you? Do you have a lot of people that call you when they're in a mortgage fix and they're getting it's tight? They're having a problem.
We're not the people you call for that.
I was just wondering if you ever get.
We're literally in the opposite business. So no, I mean, I at the end of the day, I periodically will get somebody, in one of your guys' fields, call me and say, hey, I got a client. Let me pick your brain. The thing I tell people, if you're really going to apply for a modification, is you got to, or some other, some other opportunity to try and stay in the existing house. You just have to do the math in the same way that you're trying to get approved. You're trying to turn around and prove to them that you can't make X payment that you're obligated to, and that you're trying to sign up for a lower one. But that stuff happens. We're in the origination business, and all that stuff that we're discussing here happens on the servicing side. So once we're done creating the loan, like that's where all that rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Hey, the last 15 minutes, I just want to talk about so me and Dylan talked about this a little earlier, right? 2024, I think, certainly since I've been in business, and Barney Rubble was buying his first homes when I came into this business. It's been a pretty crazy year in real estate. 2024, probably, I think, the most consequential year in real estate since I've been doing this anyway, with everything going on, all the lawsuits, the changes, commission changes, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk a little bit about what's coming in 2025. What do you think's coming? Like, Patrick, what do you think? Like, give me one major thing that you think maybe people don't see, or maybe they do see coming, that's going to happen in 2025?
I'm very excited to make a prediction that I will not be, there will be no consequences to being wrong about this, as with
Right.
most predictions. The first thing that comes to mind is just the notion that, we're reaching 5 years on from the beginning of the pandemic. And as we all remember, 2020, the second half, at least 2021, maybe even into the first half of 2022, people were moving. And it was just like, contracts coming in left, right, and center. And those people will have been in those homes for going on 5, 3, 4, 5 years, and they're probably, many of them are ready for a change. Now, and many of them have been waiting out interest rates, and now we've just learned that the Fed is scared of inflation again. They're looking at fewer cuts than they were rate cuts than they were initially discussing. So I guess that's all to say that I think that the life cycle of someone in a home, we're sort of reaching that point in time when, they love their low interest rate, but they also, they can't put a third kid in the bedroom that has 2 already. They're starting a family. They're increasing the size of their family. They're empty nesters. I mean, a lot has happened. So those interest rates are great, but you've got to have housing that fits your lifestyle. Otherwise, it just becomes untenable. So I think we're going to see a lot of activity. We're going to see a lot more people willing to sell, even though they're going to have to buy a replacement property at a higher interest rate.
I like it. I think that's actually a fair assessment. I think that, especially now that we're getting to the point where, look, one of the things I keep sharing with people is that they have the people who even bought since rates went up, right? The people who bought 3 years ago. If you're in this cycle, you're going to trade you'll be more than willing to trade your 5 3/4 or 6 1/4 mortgage and the $70 or $80 or $100,000 in equity that you've built over the last 3 years to get that next house. You might not be willing to trade your 2 3/4 loan, right? Like that's how people take equity lines at 8% and put additions on that make people scratch their heads in 10 years when they're reselling that house. So I get that there's a portion of that, Patrick. I think the other thing is that from a business standpoint, from an industry standpoint, I think we're getting to the point where we're going to have, again, now 4 years in, kind of get to a point where we're right sized in terms of the number of agents who keep their licenses, the number of mortgage lenders who keep their licenses, and the number of other people who kind of fell into all the ancillary real estate services over the course of the pandemic are not going back to do whatever they did before or whatever's next. And we'll probably have the right amount of people for the right amount of business for the first time in a few years too, which I think will make it a less stressful time for those of us who are professionals in the business.
I would love to see that. Dylan, I hope that you are prophetic, because man, I echo every single one of the words that you just said. That the boom times are great because the money's coming in, the business is coming in. But I also find that the lean times tend to be they tend to go more smoothly because you've got people like Larry and John and Dylan and even me. We're lifers in this business. We're not the people that are in for the 2-year licensure life cycle, and then we bounce because we realize it's too hard. We're in it, baby.
Yeah. It's supposed to be hard. To quote a movie, the hard is what makes it great.
I think we're already seeing a calling of the herd, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Patrick,
but every year comes up with another set of annual renewals, and then we get a little more dropping off. And I used to, my previous employer, the CEO used to say, a lot of people stopped bartending and started selling mortgages during the pandemic, and all of a sudden bartending looks really attractive again, relatively speaking. Like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, Patrick, I agree with you though that I think the Fed really screwed this up. The inflation genie is not back in the bottle, and now it's starting to go north again. He keeps saying, "Oh, it's near 2%." It's like it's been kind of tweaking up the last 3 months, and I think that's going to really kick in after the first. And I think the mortgage rates too are going to keep going up. I don't see what's going to bring those down. I don't
rates
know.
are not going down.
Yeah,
No.
it's going down either.
No,
It really
And
is.
Dylan,
guys,
Dylan,
go ahead.
I was hearing too that, a lot of these refi, I guess there's been a little bump in refis, and a lot of them are just to pay debt.
I've heard a lot of that too.
There's a number of people who are coming in and have become willing to give up their low rate mortgage for payment relief rather than interest rate relief, right? So if you've got a $790 car payment and there's 4 years left and you're upside down on the car and you got 2 credit cards for 30 grand and another $1,000 a month, you could probably refinance, take a $600 a month increase and reduce your outflow by $1,200. Like, it's absolutely a thing that is out there. And am I doing a ton of it personally? No, but is it in the air? For sure. And it's a viable solution for some folks, like but eventually, like the people getting foreclosed on, like if you don't change your habits,
yeah, that sounds like lambs being led to slaughter. It's like, let's go double up on this mortgage, get rid of our 2.5, and I'm seeing a ton of that.
Well, and I've seen the math. Look, part of the argument behind the math is this idea that you're going to turn around, get the payment relief, right? $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month in payment relief, and then you're going to redouble that back and start knocking that down on your mortgage. And look, you're only going to qualify for a new mortgage if you've made those payments, right? Because if you fall behind on those payments, you're not getting a new mortgage anyway. So you're at least that well enough to do. But most people breathe a sigh of relief and put that $1,500 back into their living budget, not into their debt reduction budget.
So let me ask you this: with all this stuff, talking about people,
we got any more good news?
And people distressed, and paying this off, and all this other stuff. Why is it that consumer spending is up 3.8%? Why are people spending money out their butt? And personally, I don't think this election had anything to do with the economy. I really don't. At the end of the day, this election had zero to do with the economy, because people are spending money like drunken sailors on a weekend leave, and they haven't stopped. So I'm done with all that bullshit. That's not the deal. Am I right or am I wrong?
But they're financing everything. They're financing everything. They're running the cards up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Credit card debt.
It's not like they're paying cash, dude. Cash is at its lowest. People have no cash.
Cash has never been king in the United States.
Yeah, but the amount of cash people have on hand is the lowest it's been, I think, since I don't remember when. But they're just jacking it up, and they don't care, man. It's like, explain what though? What do you mean?
People got used to the lifestyle that they were leading during the pandemic, when cash was easy to get your hands on. It's really hard to dial that. Once you're used to certain things, it's hard to dial that back.
Yeah.
And so they find different ways. They compromise. They run up the credit cards. You finance this. There's a lot of people out there that just don't have a good relationship with money. They just they just view it as a thing to use to get something that they want right now, and the next paycheck will come in and I'll be able to do something with that. It's very easy. The credit cards are great because they allow you to kind of smooth out the bumps in the road, right? Like, we all have good times, we have bad times, but if I can dip into a revolving line of credit so I don't have to eat ketchup soup this month, I mean, that's a nice thing to have. But if you're irresponsible with it, you really put yourself in a tight spot. And most of us really don't fully appreciate the power of interest, right? I mean, the credit card's got 24% interest rate. I don't even know what that means. Just give me the steak that I want, because I'm
Yeah, I think what you said though, Patrick, is very true earlier. Life moves real estate. So I'm also optimistic that after, I would say, sometime after January, end of January, we're going to start seeing some real activity out there. As long as interest rates don't go completely nuts, as long as we stay around 7%, inventory continues to inch up a little bit, I think we're going to see considerably more activity out there. And we'll see. You know, I'm pretty much wrong every time I try and predict anything. But
we all are.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
As long as unemployment doesn't like shoot up, you know, the fact that people are working and earning money and, you know, able to kind of, you know, limp along, whether or not they've got enough cash or whatever, you know, that I think is the major distinguishing factor between, you know, what we're looking at today as opposed to, you know, the people that are, you know, on the real estate bubble subreddit, right? They're all thinking it's going to come crashing down. As long as people are working and earning money, they're going to continue paying their bills to the best that they can, and certainly their mortgage. You know, that's the last one to go, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, it shouldn't be the last one to go. If you got to choose between your condo assessment and your mortgage, pay the condo assessment. They can get rid of you a lot quicker than your mortgage
they
company
can foreclose on you, and they will.
In Illinois, just a little word to the wise.
Hey, before we wrap it up, I just want to give everybody a chance to let the folks know out there, the 6 people and my cat that are watching this, where they can get in touch with you. So start with you, John. How do people get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Wire Rent Real Estate Company, downtown Batavia, 630-601-1300. Call or text anytime.
All right. And Dylan, what about you?
Call or text me at 630-708-7088 for all things mortgage related for new loans, not if you're not able to make your payment.
Gotcha. Hello, Dylan. No, Patrick.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry.
Dylan, you got a couple of bucks on you? I'm short today. You want more scintillating, hot real estate takes? Find me on social media. On Instagram, find me Loftus_law. And for the next, 28 days or so, find me on TikTok at Loftus Law.
Yeah. Hey, before I end this, Patrick, I came across, and either of you guys as well. So a friend of mine lives in the Philippines, and he showed me a house, and Patrick can find you a cheap flight anywhere you want. So go to Let Me Help You Fly on TikTok. But so he sent
and Instagram,
me
because TikTok's going away. So go follow me on Instagram, because if TikTok goes away, that's the only place you'll find my hot.
So check this out, man. Takes. This house in the Philippines is on the best golf course in the Philippines, a walk away from the beach, you know, not far, and 3-bedroom, 3-bath. I mean, like a really nice place, including daily maid service, including daily like landscape service, whatever that means. I don't know why anybody needs a daily landscaper. Maybe in the Philippines you do. And but yeah, really nice luxury type property. What do you think they're leasing that place for a month? 3-bedroom, 3-bath, on a golf course, a walk to the beach in the Philippines.
I'm gonna go $1,200 a month.
I'm gonna go $800 a month.
1,500.
You get it, John.
1,500.
It's $1,570 all day long, everything included, for an entire month. If I would have known that before December, I'm not even kidding you, I'd be doing this from the Philippines right now.
Right.
I'll send you the link, Patrick, to take a look at this place. It's insane.
Yeah, best I can do for you there is $874 round trip, but it's on Turkish Airlines. That's $208 less than what you're normally looking at to go to Manila. Now I don't know where in the Philippines this particular villa is located, but you know, $874. It's not the cheapest, but once you're in the Philippines, like your money stretches so far you wouldn't even believe it.
Yeah, when you guys rent it, let me know and I'll come down.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you ain't coming for free, bro.
We'll play around. I'll buy your golf. That's got to be what, 50 cents based on that price?
Oh, that's funny. No, I mean, this play, I'll send you guys the link, but it's insane. I looked at this. I'm like, holy cow, $1,570 a month.
That's crazy.
That's great stuff. All right, you guys. Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas, boys.
Merry
Happy New
Christmas,
Year.
fellas.
And
Always good to have a chat.
Take care.
Yeah, be well. I'll talk to you next year.
Take care, boys.
All right.
You got it.
See you guys. All right, everybody. That is a wrap on this December 19th version of the Real Estate Radio Show. We were joined by Patrick Loftus, real estate attorney here in Chicago, Dylan Kramer, Neighborhood Loans, and of course, our buddy John Hoffman, Why Rent Real Estate. Say that 10 times quick. The broker owner over there. So remember, if you're a listing agent, go check out listingagentadvantage.com. You can save your sellers $1,000 or more on closing costs, and check it out. Until next year, you guys have a fabulous, fabulous end of the year. Have a great holiday season. Stay positive. Things are going to go great for you next year. And everybody have a great holiday, and we will we'll talk to you again. We're going to come back on I believe the 9th of January. We're going to kick it back off. So join us on the 9th of
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now, go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.